Sometimes I wonder what within a contract could I change to keep a guy involved? Well, even if that's a sport. Like a guy is going to retire. Well, what could I change within the contract so that he wouldn't retire? And while that might catch you off guard, it would also catch fighters off guard. Like they don't know. They've never thought about it from that perspective. They never knew that anything could change. What is it you're thinking about changing? I mean, let's just say Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. Fights off. Okay. Conor's side. Conor's side comes out, says the fight's off. You go, okay, well, take a look at this contract. What within it can we change to keep the fight on? Do we need to change Michael Chandler? No, I don't care who the opponent is. Okay, you know what? I believe you. Okay, that stays on. No, the fight's off. Just the fight's not off yet. What within the contract can I change so that the fight is on? What could I change? Oh, my leg hurts. I can't stand up and fight. Okay, fair enough. We're going to do it sitting down. That's what we'll change in the contract. If I change it to we're sitting down, can I keep everything else the same? I realize I'm being silly with that, but my point is the same. Conor McGregor, the Chandler fight's off. Well, I don't want it to be off. What can I change within this contract? Right now, the contract says June 29th, 2024. If I make it June 29th, 2025, is it on? Well, yeah. Yeah, I'd be ready to fight by then. Okay, great. So there is something I can change within the contract to keep this a go. And you will see guys retire from this sport. Retire. They're done. And the real reason, and the number one reason they retired, was not because they fell out of love with it or they were worried about their legacy or they were slowing down or they wanted to spend more time with their family. The real, and this represents most people. So more people have retired for this reason than have not. Big statement by me. They didn't want to make weight anymore. Like there are guys who have left the sport, then you go check in on them, you go, what are you doing? Oh man, nothing's different. I'm in the gym every day, man. That's my family. And I'm getting workouts. Oh, you mean you're coaching guys? No, I'm not even coaching. I'm there. I'm doing the practice. I'm still training. I love it now. And it's a stress release. And I love to be around the guys. It's like, wait a minute. You're doing the exact same thing. You're doing all the things that are really hard and really necessary and to do the sport, but then you're not doing the sport, the reward, the payoff where you actually get the notoriety and the money. I don't understand that. They won't either. They will tell you, oh man, it's just a different life out there, and I'm giving back and I'm working. You really start to break it down and you go, well, wait a minute, you're doing the same thing. Now you're corner guy, so now you're even making flights. You're even checking into hotels. You're even going on fight week, going to press conferences and going to weigh-ins. Why are you not doing this and getting the money? And if you really challenge them and they were to really break it down, because see, they don't know it themselves. That's what I'm suggesting for you. They don't know it themselves. More people have retired from this sport because they didn't want to beat the scale. They didn't want to weigh in again. And that speaks to a lot. That is a lifestyle. That is a physiology. That is calories in versus calories out. What time you go to bed, what time you get up in the morning. Whether you go out in the rain and get those steps in or you don't. Like there's a lifestyle. Your moodiness, your crankiness, what you can enjoy. There's a lot to it. But nonetheless, more people have retired from the sport and said to spend time with their family. To say that I just can't come to terms in my contract, whatever it might be. And the real reason they didn't want to make weight. So if we look at that contract and you were to say you can't fight a guy, what can I change? Can I change that? For well over half the guys who have ever canceled a fight said they weren't feeling good. If I would have behind the scenes spotted them 15 pounds, would all of a sudden that shoulder be feeling good? And I'm only suggesting yes. The answer is yes. Okay, but that's not the only thing, right? It's not always a weight issue. As a matter of fact, in Conor versus Chandler, we know for sure it is not a weight issue. And I'm only using Conor and Chandler as a jumping off point. It's an overarching, but what if I change the rounds? I'm asking you to do something that you're playing through in your mind and you're supposing I'm not going to be able to hold up and do. You can't do it at all? You can't do any of it? Well, I can't train the way I want to train. Well, okay, but that's a cardio issue. Not being able to train the way you want to train, man, you're not going to be able to do this as long. What if I make it 3 rounds? Oh, yeah, I could do that. Okay, What if the answer is still no? And you change, you go, okay, I'm going to make it 3 rounds. They're going to be 3 minutes apiece. All of a sudden, things start to change. All of a sudden, the guy's mindset starts to change. All of a sudden, you start narrowing him down. I used to do this in real estate, and I would try to not be a salesman. Nobody likes to deal with the salesman. I would just show people the properties. Take it from there. But every now and then, I would turn to one sales tactic, and it's the only one but when they didn't like a house, why? What do you not like? Well, I don't like how the staircase goes. Okay, for what price is that staircase fine? And not some of the time, 100% of the time. We would go from a client that's off, they're off the house. They're off the house, take me somewhere else, don't need to see anymore, to they're on the house. 100% of the time. Now, that price might not be realistic, and it may not be one we could accept, but if we stood there and we isolated, for what price? Well, I want a house with a hot tub. This house doesn't have a hot tub. Well, for what price will this house do when you can figure out the hot tub on your own? And it becomes an interesting situation. And it becomes an interesting situation because the athlete himself who's pulling out doesn't actually know. He hasn't thought about that. More fighters have retired because they didn't want to make weight anymore than any other reason. And you have never heard a fighter retire and state, I don't want to make weight anymore. They don't know. They don't even know that about themselves. Well, I can't do this. I can't hold up. Well, can you do it at all? Can you do it for a minute? Yeah, I can do it for a minute. Okay. If I change the rules to this fight, that this fight's going to be for 1 minute, can I expect you to come? And it just starts to change. I learned this psychology from a coach named Roy Pittman. But every day at wrestling practice, and he ran the hardest wrestling practice, every day somebody, minimum of one, would fail to complete the practice. They would have to go and say, oh, they weren't feeling good. Every time. And Coach Pittman pulled this stunt. I was with him for so many years. I saw him do this a number of times. But when that bench started to fill up, and the harder the practice was, the more you were sweating, the louder he's yelling is directly related to how many kids all of a sudden are hurt, right? So with 10 minutes left in practice, Coach would play a game. And we loved games. He'd play a game. And everybody on that bench that couldn't practice, that was too hurt to practice, everybody on that bench would then come on the mat and they would play the game. And he would let it go. He would let them play. He would wait till the end of practice. He would sit them all down, and then he would tell you what happened. 10 of you quit practice 90 minutes ago, but when it was time to play a game, you felt fine. And it put them in a spot where they didn't even know they were doing it. They didn't even realize, oh my God, Coach, you're right. I can do it. I wasn't too sick. I wasn't too hurt. That homework wasn't so important and time consuming. I just didn't realize it. I didn't realize it myself. I appreciate that you did. You're right. If I can run around and do that game, I could have done practice. So sometimes it's an excuse. Sure it is. But there's other times, and more often than you might think, where it's not an excuse. The athlete just doesn't realize. And I wonder that for every fight that has ever fallen apart. I mean, not for nothing, but when Khabib retired, Khabib was planning to go to 30-0. Khabib is a man of his word like few you will ever come across. But he didn't have to be locked into 29. Like that was a new idea. It was a new thing that he was dealing with. They couldn't get him back. And they were adjusting numbers in those contracts. And the number that they adjusted each time was the one that didn't work the time before, the one before that. And if they were still talking to him today and they were still adjusting it, it still wouldn't work. They were looking at the wrong number. And that number was the price. It was how much money. That was the wrong number. If you wanted him one more time, you wanted him in a special event, then. But if you wanted him then, and you wanted to get that done, the number you needed to change, and he would have said yes, was the weight class. That was the one. That is what retired him, not 29-0. Not wanting to leave, wanting to go be a coach. If you were to speak with him privately, and he was to really isolate it, and he may not know it himself, the reason he left wasn't because he didn't want to fight. He left because he didn't want to make 155 pounds anymore, and he's no different than most of the others. And if there is a fight that is in question for June 29th, no matter what that reason is, somewhere within those numbers of that contract, something could be adjusted. Just like the clients that would never live in a house with a staircase down the middle. For a certain price, all of a sudden, that staircase looks pretty good in the middle. doesn't it?